a cry for help that ended in silence. "Please stop, Craig. Please stop." These were the last words Karen Liner ever spoke before a gunshot rang out, cutting her pleas short. On the other end of the 911 line, a dispatcher listened in horror, powerless to intervene. How did a love story once filled with promise end in a brutal execution? How could a man who once vowed to love and cherish his wife now stand accused of her cold-blooded murder? This is the harrowing, true story of Karen and Craig Liner, a tale of obsession, loss, and a small Tennessee town left reeling from the horror of domestic violence turned deadly. Cleveland, Tennessee is a picturesque southern town known for its strong sense of community, historic charm, and quiet streets. It was a place where violent crime was rare, where neighbors watched out for one another, and where tragedy, when it struck, felt like an earthquake rippling through every household. But on the morning of January 27, 2025, that peace was shattered. At around 8:30 a.m., a chilling 911 call came in from a home on Arthur Lane. The voice on the line was desperate, terrified. "Please stop, Craig." Gunfire erupted. Then, silence. Karen Liner was a woman on the rise. She had spent years in nursing before making the transition to real estate, where she quickly established herself as a respected and successful agent with Bender Realty. Hardworking, compassionate, and beloved by colleagues and clients alike, Karen was known for her warmth, dedication, and strong work ethic. She had a keen eye for detail and an innate ability to connect with people, making her a trusted name in the real estate world. Beyond her career, Karen was a devoted friend, mother, and community member. She had a magnetic personality, often the first to lend a helping hand, whether it was assisting a first-time homebuyer or volunteering at local charities. Her kindness extended beyond her job. She took pride in making others feel welcome and valued. Her friends described her as a woman who always found the silver lining, someone who exuded optimism, even in the face of personal struggles. She had an adventurous spirit and a love for travel, frequently sharing stories of her trips and future plans. Karen loved the simple pleasures of life: good coffee in the morning, long walks in the park, and the joy of decorating her home with new touches of warmth and elegance. She had recently begun a new chapter, embracing her independence and looking forward to a fresh start. But tragically, she never got the chance to fully step into that future. But beneath her professional success, Karen was fighting a private battle, one against a man who refused to let her go. In September 2024, Karen finalized her divorce from her husband of several years, Charlton Craig Liner. Their marriage had once been filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams, but over time the cracks began to show. The arguments became more frequent, fueled by Craig's growing need for control and Karen's increasing desire for independence. At first, Craig's possessiveness was subtle: constant check-ins, monitoring her social media, and an overwhelming need to always know where she was. But as the years passed, his behavior escalated. He began isolating Karen from her friends, showing up unannounced at her work and accusing her of being unfaithful without any basis. Karen, ever the optimist, tried to make things work, believing that their love could withstand these struggles. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. As Craig's behavior became more unpredictable, Karen confided in close friends that she no longer felt safe. She had tried multiple times to create distance, but each time, Craig found a way to pull her back in, through apologies, grand gestures, and at times, veiled threats. When she finally made the difficult decision to leave, it was not without fear. The divorce was messy. Craig refused to accept it, showing up at Karen's new home unexpectedly and continuing to call her incessantly. Even after legal papers were signed, he still acted as though their marriage wasn't truly over. Karen, determined to reclaim her life, pushed forward, but the shadow of Craig lingered. And in the end, he refused to let her go. Determined to start fresh, Karen moved into a new home. She excitedly bought new furniture, determined to fill her space with positivity and hope for the future. Friends noticed she seemed lighter, freer, but there was an undercurrent of anxiety. Craig was still around. He still called. He still showed up uninvited. And then he killed her. Craig Liner, 61, had built a respectable career as a pharmacist at Chi Memorial Hospital. He had always been known as a diligent worker, meticulous in his duties, and well-versed in his profession. His colleagues regarded him as knowledgeable, though not particularly social. He preferred routine and control, thriving in an environment where precision was key. Craig had been in the medical field for decades, steadily climbing the ranks and earning a reputation as a competent professional. However, outside of work, his personal life was a stark contrast to the order he maintained at the pharmacy. His marriage to Karen had been a source of pride in the early years, and he often spoke about how lucky he was to have found someone as accomplished and kind-hearted as her. But over time, cracks began to form in his seemingly structured life. Craig struggled with controlling tendencies, a need to dictate the course of his relationship, and an inability to handle emotional turbulence. He found comfort in order and discipline, but Karen's growing independence clashed with his rigid expectations. As their marriage deteriorated, Craig became more withdrawn from his social circles. Friends and family noticed his increasing irritability and obsession with Karen's whereabouts. His job, once a source of pride, became a secondary focus as his energy fixated on his failing relationship. When he lost his position at the hospital, it was a final blow to his sense of identity, leaving him unmoored and desperate to regain control. And in his mind, Karen was the only thing he had left to cling to. The divorce had left him angry, bitter, and desperate to regain control. He had recently lost his job, adding financial instability to his emotional turmoil. Friends and family would later recount that he had become increasingly erratic, fixated on Karen, and what he saw as her betrayal. While Karen was moving on, Craig was spiraling, and on that fateful morning, he decided to end it all. January 27, 2025, began as a normal morning for Karen. She was likely preparing for work, perhaps sipping her morning coffee, ready to tackle a new day. Then, Craig arrived. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera later revealed the haunting timeline. Craig pulled into Karen's driveway in his white sedan, stepped out, and walked up to her house. What was said in those moments remains unknown, but the situation escalated quickly. Authorities later released a portion of the 911 call, revealing the sheer terror in Karen's voice as she desperately pleaded for her life. The dispatcher, responding to the emergency, tried to calm her.
Get out of my driveway.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
135 Arthur Lane. Please come, Craig, please stop.
135. Can you hear me, ma'am? You said 135 Arthur Lane Southwest. You still there, ma'am? I heard multiple shots. It sounded like shots. She's not responding. Are you still there, ma'am?
When officers arrived minutes later, Karen was dead. After leaving the scene, Craig drove to his cousin Jay Collins's house, appearing unusually calm given the situation. He parked his car in the driveway, sat for a moment, and then knocked on the door as if it were just another visit. When Collins answered the door, Craig looked at him with unsettling calmness, his face void of emotion, and simply said, "It's over. I finished it." Jay Collins, confused by Craig's words, initially thought he might be joking or exaggerating, but as Craig continued speaking in a serious, almost detached manner, Collins realized something was terribly wrong. Craig then reached into his jacket and pulled out the firearm, carefully placing it on the kitchen counter, as if surrendering a mere object, not the weapon that had just ended a life. His hands were steady, his breath controlled. "I shot Karen," he said again, this time more softly, as if confirming to himself what he had done. Collins, now realizing the gravity of the situation, froze in disbelief before quickly grabbing his phone. "What do you mean you shot Karen? Are you serious?" he asked, his voice rising in panic. But Craig simply nodded, his demeanor unchanged. Collins, realizing the gravity of the situation, immediately called 911. He struggled to find the right words as he told the dispatcher that Craig had admitted to something terrible. Authorities arrived soon after, taking Craig into custody without incident. Within hours, Craig was in custody, his composure finally cracking as reality set in. News of Karen's murder spread quickly through Cleveland. Her co-workers at Bender Realty were devastated, unable to comprehend how such a horrific act had taken place. Clients shared stories of her kindness and professionalism. Friends posted heartfelt tributes, mourning a woman taken too soon. Vigils were held in her honor. People gathered in grief, holding candles, sharing memories, and demanding justice. Craig Liner was charged with first-degree murder and felony murder. During his initial court appearance, prosecutors presented damning evidence: the 911 recording, surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and Craig's own confession. The judge, citing overwhelming proof of premeditation, denied him bail. His next court appearance was set for April 28, 2025, where a grand jury would decide whether to indict him. Karen Liner's murder was not just a crime. It was a tragic example of how obsession and domestic violence can escalate into deadly consequences. Cleveland, Tennessee, was left shaken. People whispered about warning signs. Could this have been prevented? Did Karen sense this was coming? Did she feel trapped, unable to escape Craig's tightening grip? The town mourned, but it also learned. Conversations about domestic violence became louder. People paid closer attention to the warning signs. Karen's story became a rallying cry for intervention, for recognizing red flags, for helping those in dangerous relationships before it was too late. Karen Liner's life was stolen in an act of unspeakable violence. She was a woman who had dedicated her life to helping others, first as a nurse, then as a realtor. She was a woman looking forward to a future. Craig Liner refused to let her have. As the case moves through the courts, one thing remains certain. Cleveland will never forget Karen Liner, and her tragic story will stand as a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of possessiveness, control, and unchecked rage. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so you never miss another episode.